The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the ICU room, casting cold shadows across Mark's face. For 93 days, I had sat in that same plastic chair, watching the ventilator breathe for him, listening to monitors beep in rhythm with a heart that I wasn't sure still beat for me. But today was different. Today, his eyelids fluttered. "Dr. Chen, he's waking up!" My voice cracked as I called out, my hand already reaching for his. 3 months of waiting, of praying, of selling everything I owned to keep him alive. It was all about to be worth it. Dr. Chen rushed in with 2 nurses. Mark's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, scanning the ceiling, then landing on me. I squeezed his hand, tears streaming down my face. "Mark, baby, it's me. It's Lena. You're okay. You're finally awake." His hand went limp in mine. His eyebrows furrowed, and he pulled his hand away slowly, deliberately, as if I were a stranger on a subway who had gotten too close. The look in his eyes wasn't confusion. It was something colder, something that made my stomach drop. Who are you?" His voice was hoarse, weak from months of disuse, but the words were clear enough to shatter me. "Mark, it's me, your wife, Lena. We've been married for 6 years. I don't know you." He turned his head toward Dr. Chen, panic rising in his voice. "Where's Jessica? Someone call Jessica, please." The room tilted. Jessica. That name. The woman from his office. The one he said was just a colleague. The one whose perfume I'd smelled on his shirts but convinced myself meant nothing. "Mr. Thorne, please stay calm," Dr. Chen said, checking his vitals. "You've been in a coma for 3 months after a severe car accident. Memory issues are common with head trauma. Can you tell me what you remember?" Mark's eyes darted around the room, landing everywhere except on me. "I remember high school. Jessica and I. We were going to get married after college. Where is she? Why is this woman here?" "This woman is your wife," Dr. Chen said gently. "Mrs. Lena Thorne. She's been here every single day." Mark shook his head violently, wincing from the pain. No, that's not right. "Jessica is my girlfriend. We've been together since we were 17. Someone call her. Her number is..." He rattled off her phone number from memory. My phone number, the one he'd apparently forgotten, he couldn't recall. But hers? Crystal clear. I stood there, frozen, as a nurse reluctantly made the call. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. Dr. Chen pulled me aside into the hallway, his voice low and professional. "Mrs. Thorne, I know this is devastating, but what we're seeing appears to be retrograde amnesia with selective memory retention. The accident caused significant trauma to his temporal lobe. Sometimes patients lose recent memories but retain older ones. He may genuinely not remember your relationship, but he remembers her." My voice was barely a whisper. "The brain is unpredictable after trauma. I'm sorry." 20 minutes later, she walked in. Jessica Monroe. Blonde, polished, wearing a cream cashmere sweater and designer jeans. She looked like she'd stepped out of a catalog, not like someone who'd just gotten an emergency call about a coma patient. "Mark!" She rushed to his bedside, and his face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in years. "Jess. Oh God, Jess, you're here." His voice broke with what sounded like genuine relief. "Of course I'm here, baby. I've been so worried." She took his hand, the same hand that had recoiled from mine, and he squeezed it tight. I backed toward the door, my heart splintering into pieces. Dr. Chen touched my shoulder. "Mrs. Thorne, perhaps you should go home and rest. This is a lot to process. I'm not leaving him," I said firmly. But even as the words left my mouth, I watched Mark whisper something to Jessica, and she giggled, actually giggled, in a hospital room where I'd been grieving for 3 months. The nurse ushered me out anyway, saying Mark needed rest and shouldn't be overstimulated. I found myself in the cold hallway, staring at the door that had just closed in my face. That's when I heard it. The door hadn't clicked shut completely. Through the crack, Mark's voice drifted out, stronger now, no longer weak and confused. It worked, Jess. She totally believed it. And Jessica's response, dripping with satisfaction. I told you she would. She's always been so naive. Did you see her face? They laughed. Together. In the room where I'd prayed over his unconscious body for 93 days. My knees buckled, and I caught myself against the wall. Every muscle in my body screamed to burst back in there, to confront them, to expose the lie. But something stopped me. A cold, clear thought cut through the rage. If they think I believe it, I can use that. I straightened up, wiped my tears, and walked away from that door. Not because I was defeated, because I was already planning. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, replaying those words over and over. It worked. She totally believed it. 3 months, 93 days of hell, and it was all a performance. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister, Claire. How is he? Is he awake? I couldn't bring myself to type the truth. Not yet. Instead, I opened my photos, hundreds of them from the past 3 months. Me holding Mark's lifeless hand. Me reading to him from his favorite books. Me celebrating small victories like when his fingers twitched or when the doctors reduced his sedation. In one photo, I looked like a ghost. Dark circles carved beneath my eyes, my hair unwashed and pulled back, wearing the same hoodie I'd worn for 4 days straight because I was afraid to leave long enough to go home and shower. I had lost 12 pounds. I had sold my car. The one I was sitting in belonged to Claire. I had emptied my savings account, maxed out 2 credit cards, and taken a loan against my late mother's jewelry to cover the medical bills that insurance wouldn't touch. And he had been planning this. The car accident hadn't been an accident at all. My hands trembled as I opened my banking app. Our joint account, the one I'd been depositing my paychecks into to cover his hospital bills, showed a balance of $847. 3 months ago, before the crash, we'd had $23,000 saved. I had spent it all keeping him alive. The irony was so bitter I could taste it. I finally drove to our apartment, my apartment now, I supposed, at 2 a.m. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. The air felt different. Stale. The bills piled on the counter told the story. Electric, final notice, water, service interruption warning, rent, eviction proceedings. I had been so focused on the hospital bills that I'd let everything else slip. Mark's coma had bankrupted me in every possible way. I collapsed onto the couch and let myself cry. Really cry, for the first time since he'd woken up. Not the grateful tears of a wife whose husband survived. The bitter, angry tears of a woman who'd been played for a fool. My phone rang at 6 a.m. Dr. Chen. Mrs. Thorne. I wanted to give you an update before you come in today. Mark is recovering remarkably well. His cognitive functions are sharp. Actually, surprisingly sharp for someone with his supposed memory deficits. He remembered his social security number, his banking passwords, even his mother's birthday. It's unusual for someone with retrograde amnesia to retain such specific numerical information while forgetting an entire marriage. There was something in his tone. Suspicion. Doubt. What are you saying, doctor? A long pause. And I'm saying that the brain is complex, Mrs. Thorne. But in 20 years of neurology, I've never seen a case quite like this. He's being discharged today. His insurance approved a home care nurse. But, given the circumstances, I assume he'll want Ms. Monroe to be his primary caregiver contact. He's being discharged already? His physical injuries have healed. The coma was medically induced to reduce brain swelling, which has resolved. There's no medical reason to keep him here. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of our apartment. No, his apartment, the lease was in his name, and made a decision. I would go to the hospital. I would play the part of the heartbroken, understanding wife. And I would watch. I would learn. And when the time was right, I would destroy them both. At the hospital, I found Mark sitting up in bed, eating breakfast, looking healthier than he had in months. Jessica sat beside him, feeding him strawberries like he was an invalid, even though his hands worked perfectly fine. "Oh, Lena." Jessica's voice was syrupy sweet with false sympathy. "Mark and I were just talking about the situation." "The situation," I repeated flatly. Mark had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, I know this is hard for you. Dr. Chen explained that we're apparently married, and I'm sorry I don't remember any of it. But I can't force myself to feel something that isn't there. Jessica is who I remember. She's who I want to be with." Every word was a knife, but I kept my face neutral, sad but accepting. "I understand," I said quietly. "I just want you to be happy, Mark, even if it's not with me." Jessica's eyes gleamed with victory. She'd won, and she knew it. "You're being so mature about this," she cooed. "Some women would make this so difficult." "What would be the point?" I said. "You can't force someone to love you." Mark actually looked relieved. "I'm glad you see it that way." Jessica and I talked, and, well, I don't feel comfortable living with someone I don't remember. The apartment is in my name, so I think it's best if you move out. I'll give you 2 weeks. 2 weeks. To find a new place with no money, no car, and no emotional energy left. "Of course," I said. "That's fair." "And Mark's going to need his space to recover," Jessica added, her hand possessively on his arm. "I'll be moving in to help with his care, just temporarily, of course, until his memory comes back." "If his memory comes back," her eyes said. "We both know it won't." "I'll start packing today," I said. As I turned to leave, Mark called out, "Lena, thank you for taking care of me while I was out." I'm sure it wasn't easy. I looked back at him. This man I'd loved for 8 years, married for 6. This man I'd sacrificed everything for. "No," I said softly. "It wasn't easy at all." I spent the next week moving my belongings into Claire's spare room, watching from a distance as Mark and Jessica settled into their new life together. Claire had wanted to confront them, to expose the lie, but I'd stopped her. "Not yet," I'd said. "Trust me." On day 3 of my exile, I drove past our apartment, their apartment now. Through the window, I could see them on the couch, watching a movie. Mark was laughing at something on screen. It was The Notebook. Mark hated The Notebook. We'd fought about it on our second date because I'd wanted to watch it, and he'd called it manipulative garbage and emotional manipulation for women who don't understand real love. But there he was, watching it with Jessica, his arm around her, smiling. How many other things had he pretended to hate with me that he actually enjoyed with her? How many years of our marriage had been a performance? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Jessica." Mark asked me to reach out. "He needs you to sign some papers, divorce papers. His lawyer says it will be simpler if you don't contest it given his condition. You'll get $10,000 as a settlement. That should help you get back on your feet." $10,000 for 6 years of marriage and 3 months of hell. I typed back, "I'll sign. When do you need me to come by?" Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Mark has a doctor's appointment, but I'll be here to witness. Perfect. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the crash, about the moment it happened. I'd been at work when I got the call. The police said his car had swerved off Highway 17, hit a barrier, and rolled twice. They said he was lucky to be alive. They'd given me a plastic bag with his belongings, his wallet, his watch, his wedding ring, which I noticed he'd stopped wearing about 6 months before the crash, and his clothes, torn and bloody. I'd taken that bag home and shoved it in the back of our closet, unable to look at it, unable to process how close I'd come to losing him. But now, I drove back to the apartment at midnight. My key still worked. Mark hadn't changed the locks yet. The apartment was dark. They must have been asleep in what used to be our bedroom. I crept to the closet, found the bag, and took it back to Claire's place. Under the harsh kitchen light, I went through everything methodically. The wallet held his driver's license, insurance cards, credit cards, all normal. The watch was shattered, stopped at 4:47 p.m., the exact time of the crash. Then I picked up his jacket. The leather was ripped and stained with dried blood. I checked the obvious pockets, empty. But my fingers found something odd. A seam that didn't quite lie flat. An inner lining that seemed thicker than it should be. I grabbed scissors and carefully opened the lining. A phone fell out. A cheap, prepaid flip phone, a burner. My hands shook as I opened it. The battery was dead. I found an old universal charger in Claire's junk drawer and plugged it in, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. The screen flickered to life. I opened the messages. There was only one conversation with a contact saved as J. The messages went back months. Mark, she's getting suspicious about the late nights. J, tell her it's a work project. She believes everything you say. Mark, I can't keep this up. I want out. I want to be with you. J, then divorce her. Mark, the prenup. She gets half of everything, including my trust fund. My dad will kill me if I lose that money. J, so don't divorce her. Make her leave you. Mark, how? J, be creative. I scrolled down, my stomach churning. Mark, I have an idea. Crazy, but it might work. J, tell me. Mark, what if I had an accident? Nothing serious, just enough to land me in the hospital for a while. J, you're insane. Mark, think about it. I wake up, claim I have amnesia. I don't remember her. Only you. She's too nice to force me to stay married to someone who doesn't remember her. She'll let me go willingly. No divorce, no splitting assets. I just forget. J, that's brilliant, but you'd have to sell it. Doctors, everyone. Mark, I can sell it. I've been pretending to love her for 2 years. This'll be easy. 2 years. He'd been pretending for 2 years. The last message was sent at 4:42 p.m. on the day of the crash, 5 minutes before the impact. Mark, I'm doing it. Light crash on Highway 17, enough to get admitted but not enough to actually hurt me badly. Airbags will protect me. Meet me at Mercy General. This is it, babe. After today, we're free. J, I love you. Be careful. See you soon. I sat there in Claire's kitchen, staring at that phone, as the sun started to rise. He had crashed his car on purpose. He had risked his life, and the lives of anyone else on that road, to avoid splitting his trust fund. The coma? That hadn't been part of the plan. That had been real. A complication from the light crash and that turned out not to be so light. But the moment he woke up, he'd gone right back to the script. The amnesia story. The tragic romance with his high school sweetheart. And I had funded it. I had sold everything I owned to pay for the hospital care of a man who was lying to me. who was stealing from me. 3 months of my life, my savings, my sanity. For this? I looked at that phone, at the evidence of their betrayal, and I smiled. Because now I had something they didn't know I had. I had proof, and more importantly, I had a plan. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind was racing with possibilities, with scenarios, with the delicious weight of what I now held in my hands. The burner phone sat on Claire's kitchen table like a loaded gun. "You have to go to the police," Claire said, when she found me there at 6 a.m., still staring at the evidence. "This is fraud. Insurance fraud at minimum. He deliberately caused an accident." "And what?" I interrupted. "They investigate, maybe press charges, maybe he gets a fine or probation." Jessica walks away clean. And I'm still broke, still evicted, still the pathetic wife who got played. Lena? No. I picked up the phone, feeling its weight. Going to the police is what the old Lena would do. The Lena who played by the rules. The Lena who trusted that the system would protect her. That Lena got destroyed. Claire sat down across from me, worry etched on her face. "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to beat them at their own game." I opened my laptop. "But first, I need to know exactly what I'm working with. What assets does Mark actually have?" We spent the morning digging through every document I'd kept. Mark had always handled our finances, another red flag I'd ignored, but I'd signed enough papers over the years to have access to some information. The trust fund his father had established was worth $2.3 million. It was set up so that Mark received monthly distributions, but the principal was untouchable until his father's death, with one exception. If Mark died or became legally incapacitated, it would go to his spouse, me. Then there was the house, not the apartment we'd been renting, but a house his grandmother had left him in Portland, worth approximately $400,000, also in his name only. His car, totaled in the crash, but the insurance payout of $35,000 was pending. And his business. Mark ran a consulting firm that, according to the tax documents I found, generated about $180,000 in annual profit. On paper, Mark was worth over $3 million. And according to our prenup, if we divorced, I'd get half of everything acquired during the marriage. That didn't include the trust fund or the inherited house, but it did include his business growth and other assets. He'd been right to be afraid of divorcing me. But if I voluntarily left the marriage because he had amnesia, if I signed away my rights out of sympathy for his condition, I'd get nothing. "That son of a bitch," Claire whispered, reading over my shoulder. "He tried to steal millions from you." "Tried," I repeated, past tense. My phone buzzed. Jessica again. "Don't forget, 3 p.m. today. Bring ID for the notary." I smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." "Thank you for being so understanding through all of this." Her response was immediate. "Of course. I know this is hard, but it's what's best for everyone. Mark just wants closure." Closure. What a lovely word for theft. At 2 p.m., I sat in a parking lot outside a law office, making a call I never thought I'd make. "Buchanan and Associates, how may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with Ruth Buchanan, please. Tell her it's Lena Thorne." "It's urgent, and it's about my husband's trust fund." Ruth Buchanan had been my father's lawyer before he died. She was ruthless, expensive, and exactly what I needed. "Lena, it's been years. What's going on?" I told her everything. The crash, the coma, the amnesia, the burner phone, the plan to defraud me out of my marital assets. There was a long pause. "Do you still have the phone?" "Yes. I haven't touched it since I found it, just charged it." "Good." "Don't let it out of your sight. Now, you said he's asking you to sign divorce papers today. In an hour. Don't sign anything, but go to the meeting. I need you to do exactly as I say. At 3 p.m. sharp, I knocked on the door of what used to be my home. Jessica answered, wearing one of my aprons. My apron, the one with the sunflowers that my mother had given me. Lena, come in. Can I get you some tea? The audacity of this woman, playing hostess in my home, wearing my clothes, offering me tea. No, thank you. Let's just get this over with. She led me to the dining table where papers were spread out. A notary sat there, a young woman who looked bored and underpaid. These are pretty straightforward, Jessica said, sliding the documents toward me. You waive all claims to marital assets in exchange for a one-time settlement of $10,000. Given Mark's medical condition and the fact that he has no memory of your marriage, the courts will likely approve this quickly. I picked up the papers, scanning them. They were actually legitimate legal documents. Mark, or more likely, Jessica, had done their homework. Where's Mark? I asked. Doctor's appointment, follow-up neurology scan, he should be back in an hour. Perfect. I pulled out a pen. Jessica's eyes lit up with barely concealed glee. Before I sign, I said slowly, I just want to make sure I understand something. Of course. This settlement, the $10,000, that's supposed to help me get back on my feet, right? Right. After I spent $22,000 of my own savings keeping Mark alive for 3 months, Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Well, that was your choice as his wife. And I sold my car, my mother's jewelry. I maxed out 2 credit cards. I kept my voice calm, almost casual. I'm now $35,000 in debt, not counting the eviction notice for this apartment because I couldn't pay rent while paying Mark's medical bills. Lena, I understand you're upset, but... So the $10,000 doesn't actually get me back on my feet. It leaves me $25,000 in the hole. The notary shifted uncomfortably. Jessica's voice took on an edge. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying I need to think about this. I put the pen down. I'm saying that something doesn't add up. What doesn't add up? Mark has amnesia. He doesn't remember you. These things happen. He remembered his bank passwords, though. Silence. Dr. Chen mentioned it. I continued. Mark remembered his social security number, his mother's birthday, his banking information, even the code to his phone. I paused. Strange thing to remember if you can't remember your own wife. Jessica's face had gone pale. Brain injuries are unpredictable. They are. Which is why I think Mark needs more tests, more evaluation. I was actually thinking of calling his insurance company, suggesting they send an independent neuropsychologist to verify the amnesia before approving any more claims. The color drained completely from Jessica's face now. That won't be necessary. Won't it? Because if Mark's amnesia is real, the insurance company will want to document it properly. But if it's not, I let the implication hang in the air. The notary was definitely paying attention now. What are you suggesting? Jessica's voice was ice. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying I need more time. I think I should consult with my own lawyer before signing away 6 years of marriage for $10,000. I stood up. I'll be in touch. Lena, wait. Thank you for the tea offer. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Jessica. That apron you're wearing, my mother made it for me before she died. I'd like it back. Her hand went to the fabric like she'd been burned. I left, hearing her frantically calling someone. Mark, probably, before I'd even reached the stairs. In my car, my phone rang immediately. Ruth Buchanan. How did it go? I didn't sign, and I made sure she knows I'm suspicious. Good. That'll make them panic, make mistakes. Now, Here's what we're going to do. I'm filing an emergency motion with the court tomorrow morning. We're going to argue that Mark is attempting to defraud you of marital assets by feigning a medical condition. The burner phone is our evidence. Will that work? It'll freeze everything. He won't be able to touch any assets, transfer anything, or finalize any divorce until we have a hearing. But Lena, there's something else. What? You said he claimed amnesia to the insurance company? Yes. They paid out for his hospital stay under traumatic brain injury. That's insurance fraud. If we can prove he faked the amnesia, he'll be looking at felony charges, prison time. And the insurance company will come after him for every penny they paid out, plus penalties. My heart raced. How do we prove it? We need him to break character. We need him to demonstrate knowledge he shouldn't have if he really had amnesia. And we need it documented. How? Ruth was quiet for a moment. How vindictive are you feeling? On a scale of 1 to 10? Yes. 15. She laughed, dark and approving. Good. Because I have an idea, but it's going to require you to be a very good actress. Better than he's been. That night, I received 7 text messages from Mark. Mark, Jessica said you came by. Mark, she said you're threatening to call the insurance company. Mark, Lena, I don't understand why you're being like this. Mark, I can't help that I don't remember. This isn't my fault. Mark, if you're trying to extort more money from me, it won't work. Mark, my lawyer says you're harassing us. Mark, just sign the papers and move on with your life. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called the insurance company that had covered Mark's hospital stay. I asked to speak to their fraud investigation department. Yes, hello. My name is Lena Thorne. I'm calling about a claim for my husband, Mark Thorne. Policy number. I read it off. I have reason to believe the claim may have been filed under false pretenses. The woman on the other end became very interested very quickly. What kind of false pretenses, Mrs. Thorne? My husband claimed to have amnesia from his car accident, but I have evidence suggesting the accident was staged and the amnesia was faked in order to defraud both the insurance company and myself. That's a serious accusation. I have phone records, text messages, documented evidence of premeditation. There was typing on the other end. Mrs. Thorne, we paid out $127,000 for your husband's hospital stay, including the extended ICU care and neurological consultations. If this claim was fraudulent, we'll need to investigate immediately. $127,000. More than I'd thought. I'm prepared to provide all evidence to your investigators. We'll be sending someone tomorrow. Don't discuss this with your husband. If he knows we're investigating, he may attempt to destroy evidence. After I hung up, I sat back and smiled. Mark had been so clever. Stage an accident, fake amnesia, steal everything and leave me with nothing. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. The next morning, I received a frantic call from Jessica. What the hell did you do? I'm sorry. The insurance company is investigating Mark. They're accusing him of fraud. They're threatening to press charges. That's terrible, I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. Why would they think Mark committed fraud? You called them. You told them he was faking. Did I? I don't remember doing that. I paused. Maybe I have amnesia too. This isn't funny, Lena. If they prove fraud, Mark could go to prison. Well, if the amnesia is real, he has nothing to worry about. Unless... I let it hang there. Unless what? Unless it's not real. Unless this whole thing was planned. Unless there's evidence of that somewhere. Dead silence. What do you want? Jessica's voice was barely a whisper now. What do I want? I laughed. I want what's fair, Jessica. I want what I'm owed. I want everything I sacrificed for a man who was lying to me. How much? Not money, not yet. Ruth's plan was working perfectly. First, I want the truth. I want Mark to admit on recording that he faked the amnesia. I want him to admit that the crash was staged. I want him to admit that you two planned this together. He'll never do that. Then I guess he'll go to prison. Insurance fraud is a felony. Jessica, 7 to 15 years. And you know what's funny? If he's convicted, I automatically get his trust fund under the incapacitation clause. All $2.3 million. I could hear her breathing, fast and panicked. But if he confesses, I continued, if he comes clean and we settle this privately, I might be willing to keep the insurance company out of it. We work out a fair divorce settlement, a real one, and everyone walks away. I need to talk to Mark. You have 24 hours. After that, I'm giving everything I have to the insurance investigators and the police. I hung up. Ruth called 2 minutes later. You're enjoying this way too much? Can you blame me? Not even a little bit. Now comes the hard part. When they agree to meet, and they will agree, they're trapped. You need to get everything on record. I'm going to give you a recorder to wear. It's legal in this state as long as one party consents, and that party is you. And then we have them. The confession, the fraud, all of it. Mark loses everything. The trust fund, the house, the business. Jessica becomes liable as an accessory, and you... I what? You walk away with everything you deserve, everything you're owed, and they get exactly what's coming to them. For the first time in months, I felt something other than grief and rage. I felt power. That evening, Mark called me himself. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk, in person. I don't think that's a good idea, Mark. Your lawyer said I was harassing you. Forget the lawyer. Tomorrow night, our apartment, just you and me. And Jessica? A pause. She'll be there too. How cozy. Lena, please. We need to work this out. I think there's been some misunderstandings. Misunderstandings. What a delicate word for conspiracy and fraud. Fine. Tomorrow at 7. Thank you. Oh, and Mark, one more thing. What? I found something in the pocket of your jacket, from the accident. The jacket the hospital gave me in a bag with your belongings. Something you probably thought was destroyed in the crash. The silence on the other end was deafening. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Well, maybe it'll come back to you. Maybe your memory is returning after all. See you tomorrow. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anticipation. Tomorrow night, I would walk into that apartment wearing a wire. I would sit across from the man who'd betrayed me and the woman who'd helped him do it, and I would watch them destroy themselves. Because the beautiful thing about liars is that they always believe they're the smartest person in the room, right up until they realize they're not. The wire was smaller than I'd expected. Ruth's investigator, a former cop named Dennis, taped it carefully to my sternum, hidden beneath a loose sweater. It'll pick up everything within 15 feet, he said. Crystal clear audio. Just act natural. Get them talking. The more they say, the better. What if they search me? They won't. They think they're in control. Abusers always do. He met my eyes. But if you feel unsafe at any point, you say the word, emergency, and I'm coming in. I'll be in a car right outside. Claire hugged me at the door. You don't have to do this. We have the burner phone. That's enough. It's not about enough, I said quietly. It's about making them face what they did. It's about watching them squirm. Just be careful, please. I drove to the apartment. My apartment, I kept reminding myself, even though I'd been kicked out of it, and parked across the street at 6:55 p.m. Through the window, I could see Mark and Jessica inside, talking intensely, rehearsing, probably, getting their story straight. At exactly 7, I knocked. Jessica opened the door. She looked tired, her makeup not quite covering the dark circles under her eyes. Good. Let her suffer even a fraction of what I had. Lena, come in. The apartment looked different. They'd rearranged furniture, changed the art on the walls. Erasing me, piece by piece, Mark sat on the couch, our couch, the one we'd picked out together on our first anniversary, looking serious and composed. He'd always been good at wearing masks. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You didn't give me much choice." "Can I get you something to drink?" Jessica asked, playing hostess again. "No, let's just talk." We sat in a triangle, Mark and Jessica on the couch, me in the chair across from them. The same chair where I'd once nursed Mark through the flu, where I'd read to him on lazy Sundays, where I'd sat crying after my mother's funeral while he held my hand and promised me everything would be okay. All lies. Every moment, every promise, lies. "So," Mark began, his voice measured, "Jessica told me about your call to the insurance company." "Did she?" "That was a serious accusation, Lena. Fraud. Do you understand what you're implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Jessica leaned forward. "What exactly do you think you found in Mark's jacket?" I smiled. "Why don't you tell me what you think I found?" They exchanged a glance. Mark's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Everything from the accident was destroyed or documented by the police." "Not everything." I pulled out my phone, opened the photos. I'd taken pictures of every message on the burner phone. "Interesting conversation you two had, especially the part about staging an accident to avoid a divorce settlement." The color drained from Jessica's face. Mark went very still. "That's..." "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely controlled. "Your jacket lining, hidden pocket. Did you forget about it? Or did you assume it was destroyed in the crash that you deliberately caused?" "You don't understand," Jessica started. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You wanted Mark. Mark wanted out of our marriage without losing his money. So you planned an accident, planned the amnesia story, and thought I'd be too devastated to question any of it." I leaned back. "What I don't understand is how you could be so stupid. Did you really think there wouldn't be evidence? Did you really think I'd just disappear?" Mark's mask was cracking. I could see rage flickering behind his eyes. "If you had any proof, you would have gone to the police already." "Would I? Because it seems like going to the insurance company first is causing you plenty of problems." "What do you want?" Jessica's voice was sharp now, desperate. "You want money?" "Fine, name your price." "You think this is about money?" "Everything's about money," she snapped. "You're just upset because you finally figured out that Mark never loved you, that he was planning to leave you anyway." "Jessica," Mark warned. But she was spiraling now, her composure breaking. "He told me everything. Lena, how boring you were, how predictable, how you never understood him like I do. The accident was just speeding up the inevitable." "Jessica, shut up." Mark stood abruptly. The room went silent. I looked at him, really looked at him. "Say that again." "What?" "You just told her to shut up about the accident. About it being inevitable. About the plan." I smiled slowly. "Thank you for that." His face went white as he realized what he'd just confirmed. This is a trap, Jessica whispered, looking around the room wildly. She's recording us. She has to be. Are you recording this conversation, Lena? Mark asked, his lawyer voice activated. Does it matter? You already admitted it. You just confirmed that the accident was planned, that the amnesia was fake. That's all I need. Mark sat back down, his hands shaking. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, what do you want? I told Jessica, I want everything I'm owed. Everything you tried to steal from me. The prenup says, the prenup is void if you committed fraud to circumvent it, which you did. So here's what's going to happen. I counted on my fingers. 1. You're going to give me a full accounting of all assets, the trust fund, the house in Portland, the business, everything. 2. You're going to agree to a settlement that reflects what I actually deserve after 6 years of marriage. 3. You're going to repay me the $22,000 I spent keeping you alive. And 4. That's insane, Jessica started. 4, I continued, my voice cutting through hers like ice. You're both going to confess to the insurance company that the amnesia was faked. You'll return their payout, and you'll accept whatever legal consequences come from that. That's prison, Mark said flatly. That's 7 to 15 years. Should have thought of that before you committed felony fraud. I'll never agree to that. Then I give everything I have to the insurance investigators and the police right now. The burner phone, the messages, this conversation, all of it. And Jessica goes down with you as an accessory. Jessica stood up, pacing. No, there has to be another way. There isn't. Yes, there is. Mark's voice was cold now, calculating. He'd switched modes again, back to the strategist. You don't actually want me in prison, Lena, because if I go to prison, you get nothing. The business falls apart, the trust fund gets tied up in legal proceedings for years, and you're still broke. He was right, and he knew it. So here's my counteroffer, he continued. I give you $200,000, cash, right now. You sign the divorce papers, you give me the burner phone, and we never speak of this again. $200,000. It's more than you'd get in any divorce settlement once lawyer fees are factored in, and you get it immediately, not years from now tied up in court. He leaned forward. Take the money, Lena. Walk away. Move on with your life. It was tempting. God, it was tempting to just take the money and run, to escape this nightmare, to start over. But then I thought about those 93 days, sitting in that hospital, selling my mother's jewelry, the eviction notice, the maxed out credit cards, the way he'd looked at me when he woke up, like I was nothing. No. Jessica's voice pitched high. Are you insane? That's $200,000. I don't want your money, I said, standing. I want justice. Justice? Mark laughed bitterly. This isn't about justice. This is about revenge. Maybe? But you know what? I've earned it. I walked toward the door. Lena, wait. Mark's voice stopped me. What if there was a way for both of us to win? I turned back. I'm listening. You're right. I faked the amnesia. The accident was staged, poorly, obviously, since I ended up in a real coma. But here's the thing. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I'm not the only one who's been lying. What are you talking about? Your debt. The $35,000 you claim you're in. I checked our accounts. Lena, the credit cards in your name maxed out before my accident, not during. The loan against your mother's jewelry, taken out 6 months ago. So where did that money actually go? My stomach dropped. Because from where I'm sitting, Mark continued, his confidence growing, It looks like you were planning your own exit strategy. It looks like you were already taking money out of our marriage before I ever crashed that car. This wasn't true. The debt was real, from the hospital bills. But he'd twisted it, made it look suspicious. That's not, isn't it? So maybe the insurance company should investigate both of us. Maybe they should look at whether you convinced me to stage an accident so we could both collect on the payout. Maybe you're just as guilty as I am. It was a bluff. It had to be. But it was a good one. Jessica was nodding now, seeing the play. She could be charged as an accomplice, conspiracy to commit fraud. That's ridiculous. Is it? Mark stood walking toward me. You have the burner phone. You found it conveniently when you needed leverage. How do I know you didn't plant it? How do I know you're not trying to frame me? Because I have the hospital records, the police reports. Everything proves that an accident happened and that I had amnesia. What it doesn't prove is that the amnesia was fake. That's just your word against mine. And now that I've recovered my memory, he smiled. Who do you think they'll believe? The devoted husband who suffered a traumatic brain injury? Or the bitter wife who's drowning in debt and making wild accusations? He was good. Damn, he was good. So here's my new offer, Mark said. You take the $200,000 and sign an NDA. You agree never to contact the insurance company, the police, or anyone else about any of this. Or I bury you. I make you look like the criminal. I make you wish you'd walked away when you had the chance. My hands clenched into fists. This was the moment where I either folded or went all in. I thought about Ruth's plan, about the second phase she'd described. You know what, Mark? You're right. I am. Yes. This is too complicated, too messy. I don't want to spend years in court fighting you. I don't want to risk criminal charges or investigations or any of it. I pulled out my phone. So I'm going to make this very simple. What are you doing? I'm calling your father. Mark's face went ghost white. Don't. I hit dial on the number I'd looked up that afternoon. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. Robert Thorne. Mr. Thorne, my name is Lena. I'm your son's wife. I'm sorry to call so late, but there's something you need to know about Mark and his trust fund. Hang up. Mark lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. Mark staged a car accident to fake amnesia and avoid divorce proceedings that would have required disclosure of his assets. He's also under investigation for insurance fraud. I have documented evidence. Mark grabbed the phone from my hand, ended the call. We stood there, breathing hard, staring at each other. You just destroyed everything, he said quietly. No, you did. 3 months ago, when you decided to drive your car into a barrier instead of being honest with me. His phone rang. Robert Thorne calling back. Mark didn't answer. It rang again. And again. You better answer that, I said. Because when he calls the trustee of his fund and asks them to freeze your distributions pending an investigation, which he will do, you're going to want to have a very good explanation ready. Jessica had collapsed onto the couch, her head in her hands. Mark stared at his ringing phone like it was a bomb. Last chance, I said. Agree to my terms. Full asset disclosure, fair settlement, confession to the insurance company, and you face the consequences. Or your father finds out everything. The trust fund gets frozen, and you lose it all anyway. Plus, I still report you for fraud. You're backing me into a corner. Good. How does it feel? Because I've been backed into a corner for 3 months, Mark. Since the day you decided I was disposable. Since the day you decided your money was more important than our marriage, our vows, or my life. His phone stopped ringing. A text came through. I could see it from where I stood. Dad, call me immediately or I'm calling the police myself. Choose, I said. Right now. Mark looked at Jessica. Jessica looked at the floor. Fine, he said finally, his voice hollow. Fine, you win. I'll confess to the insurance company. I'll give you a fair settlement. Just leave my father out of this. Too late for that. But if you cooperate fully, I'll tell him you're making it right. I'll tell him you're taking responsibility. And if I don't, then I'll make sure he knows every detail of what you did, every message, every lie, everything. And I'll make sure the press knows too. Local businessman fakes brain injury to defraud wife and insurance company. That'll be great for your consulting business. His hands were shaking now. All the confidence, all the control, gone. I need a lawyer. You need a miracle. But I'll settle for a confession. I pulled out a piece of paper Ruth had prepared. This is a sworn statement admitting everything. Sign it. Now. I can't just sign it or I walk out of here and send everything to your father, the insurance company, and the local news. You have 10 seconds. Lena. 10, 9, 8. This is blackmail. 7, 6, 5. Jessica stood up. Mark, just sign it, and end this. 4, 3. He grabbed the pen, his hand trembling. 2. He signed. I took the paper, photographed it with my phone, and sent it to Ruth immediately. There, done. Are you happy now? Mark's voice was broken. No, I said honestly. I'm not happy, but I'm satisfied. There's a difference. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Mark, one more thing. What? The debt you mentioned, the credit cards, the loan. You were right that they were taken out before your accident. Want to know what I spent that money on? He said nothing. Your birthday present. I was planning a surprise trip to Japan for our anniversary. First-class tickets, luxury hotels, the works. $30,000 total. I'd been saving for 2 years, but it wasn't enough, so I took out loans to cover the rest. I smiled bitterly. I was going to surprise you the week after your accident. I had the tickets in my desk drawer. Non-refundable. Jessica made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Mark's face crumbled. So when you say I was planning an exit strategy, you're wrong. I was planning a future with you. Because I actually loved you. Because I actually thought we had something real. I opened the door. Enjoy your victory, I said to Jessica. You won him. But what you won is a man who will betray anyone for money. Even you. Especially you. Remember that. I walked out, leaving them in the apartment. Their apartment now, and I didn't look back. In my car, I sat for a moment, letting it all sink in. Dennis knocked on my window. You okay? I'm okay. I looked at the recorder. Did you get everything? Every word, crystal clear, including the confession. Good. My phone rang. Ruth. I got the signed statement. This is it. Lena, we have everything we need. The insurance company will prosecute. The divorce will go through on your terms. You're going to get everything you deserve. Thank you. How do you feel? I thought about it. Tired, angry, relieved, all of it. That's normal. Go home, rest. Tomorrow, we start the real work of getting your life back. I drove to Claire's apartment, where she was waiting with wine and blankets and the promise that I never had to talk about it if I didn't want to. But I did want to talk about it, because for the first time in 3 months, I felt like myself again. Not the broken woman who'd sat in a hospital room praying for a miracle. Not the naive wife who'd believed every lie. The woman who'd fought back, who'd refused to be a victim, who'd taken everything they'd tried to steal and made them pay for it. That night, I slept better than I had in months, because tomorrow the real reckoning would begin. The insurance company moved faster than I expected. Within 48 hours of receiving the evidence, they'd frozen Mark's claim, opened a formal fraud investigation, and sent a team of investigators to interview everyone involved. But that wasn't the climax I'd been planning. Ruth called me on Thursday morning, 3 days after the confrontation. Mark's lawyer is trying to negotiate. They're offering a settlement, full disclosure of assets, $800,000 cash payment, and he pleads guilty to a reduced charge. What kind of reduced charge? Misdemeanor fraud instead of felony, probably probation, restitution, but no prison time. I was silent for a moment. And Jessica? She'd walk. Insufficient evidence to prosecute her as an accessory. Mark's claiming he acted alone, that she didn't know about the plan. That's a lie. I know. But without her explicitly confessing on tape, it's hard to prove. The burner phone messages could be interpreted as her just going along with what he told her. My jaw clenched. So he takes a slap on the wrist, pays me off, and she gets away completely. It's not ideal, but Lena, $800,000 is not enough. It's not about the money anymore. Ruth sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Mark mentioned something during our conversation. Something about a party. What party? Last week, before I went to confront them, Jessica told me she was planning a welcome back celebration for Mark. To celebrate his recovery, she invited his whole office, his family, his friends. When is it? Saturday night? 2 days from now. I paused. I think I should go. Lena, that's a terrible idea. Is it? Because I'm still technically his wife. I have every right to be there, and I think it's time everyone knew the truth. If you're planning what I think you're planning, I'm not planning anything illegal. I'm just planning to tell the truth. In front of witnesses, in front of his father, his colleagues, his friends, everyone who's been feeling sorry for him, who's been celebrating his miraculous recovery. Ruth was quiet for a long moment. You want to destroy his reputation. I want justice. Real justice. Not a backroom deal where he pays me off and everyone still thinks he's the victim. This could backfire. It could make you look vengeful. Good. I am vengeful. He tried to steal my life. Why shouldn't I take his in return? Another pause. If you do this, there's no going back. No settlement, no negotiation. It becomes a full legal war. I know. You could end up with less money. The legal fees alone, I don't care. Lena. Ruth. I sat by his bedside for 93 days. I sold everything I owned. I went into debt. I sacrificed everything for a man who was laughing at me behind my back. And now he gets to walk away with a misdemeanor and everyone's still thinking he's a good guy who had a tragic accident. My voice broke. No, I won't accept that. I can't. She sighed. Okay. If you're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. You can't just show up and start making accusations. We need documentation. We need witnesses who'll support you. I have an idea, but I'm going to need your help. Saturday evening arrived cold and clear. The party was being held at the Meridian, an upscale event space downtown that Mark's company had rented for the occasion. Through the windows, I could see string lights, elegantly dressed people, servers carrying champagne. Jessica had gone all out. I sat in my car across the street, wearing a black dress that Claire had lent me. Simple, elegant, appropriate for a celebration or a funeral. Ruth sat in the passenger seat, reviewing the plan one last time. You're sure about this? I'm sure. Once you walk in there, once you start talking, there's no taking it back. I know. She handed me a small remote. This connects to the projector. I had Dennis sneak in an hour ago and set it up in the AV booth. The staff thinks it's for Mark's speech. One click and it'll override whatever's on screen. And you have the files loaded? Everything. The burner phone messages, screenshots of the texts, photos of the signed confession, the insurance investigation documents, it's all queued up. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Dr. Chen just arrived. He's inside. Perfect. I'd invited Mark's neurologist myself, sending him a formal invitation that appeared to come from Jessica. I needed him there to validate what I was about to reveal. Ready? Ruth asked. Ready. We walked across the street and into the Meridian. The lobby was decorated with photos of Mark before the accident, during his recovery, recent ones looking healthy and happy, a timeline of his miraculous journey back to health. It made me sick. The main ballroom was packed, at least 100 people, maybe more. I recognized Mark's father, Robert Thorne, standing near the bar looking uncomfortable. Mark's colleagues from his consulting firm, his college friends, his mother, who'd never liked me, dabbing her eyes with a tissue as she talked about her brave boy. And there, at the center of it all, stood Mark and Jessica. He was wearing a tailored suit, looking every bit the successful survivor. She was in a red dress, her hand possessively on his arm, smiling like she'd won the lottery. A woman I didn't recognize was standing on the small stage, speaking into a microphone. And now, I'd like to invite Mark to say a few words about his incredible recovery. Applause erupted as Mark made his way to the stage. Jessica beamed from the front row. Thank you all so much for being here, Mark began, his voice warm and charismatic. 3 months ago, I woke up from a coma with no memory of the past 6 years of my life. I didn't know where I was. I didn't recognize the people around me. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. People nodded sympathetically. Someone said, "You're so brave." But I was lucky, he continued, because the one memory I did have, the one person I remembered, was standing right there in my hospital room. Jessica, my high school sweetheart, the love of my life. She never gave up on me. Jessica wiped away a theatrical tear. And I know this hasn't been easy for everyone, Mark said, his tone becoming more serious. I understand that my condition has caused pain for some people. People who felt they knew me, but whom I couldn't remember. And I'm sorry for that. I truly am. He was talking about me without saying my name, positioning himself as the victim, me as the bitter ex-wife who couldn't accept his tragedy. But tonight is about moving forward, Mark said, his smile returning. It's about gratitude. It's about the future. And I'm so grateful to have all of you here, supporting me as I start this new chapter of my life. That's a beautiful speech, Mark. My voice cut through the room like a knife. Everyone turned to look at me. Mark's smile froze. Jessica went pale. I walked down the center aisle toward the stage, every eye on me. Lena, Mark said carefully, I didn't know you were coming. Didn't you? I'm still your wife after all. Legally, the divorce isn't final yet. I stepped onto the stage beside him. May I? I didn't wait for an answer. I took the microphone from his hand. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Lena Thorne, Mark's wife, the one he forgot. I looked out at the crowd. Mark just gave a beautiful speech about his recovery, about his miraculous survival. About true love conquering all. It was very moving. Lena, what are you doing? Mark reached for the microphone, but I stepped away. It was also completely fabricated. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark didn't lose his memory in a car accident. He chose to pretend he lost his memory. The accident itself was staged, deliberately, as part of a plan to defraud me out of marital assets and to commit insurance fraud. That's not true. Jessica stood up. She's lying. She's just bitter. Am I? I held up the remote. Because I have proof. I clicked the button. The projector screen behind me lit up with the first image, a photo of the burner phone. This is a phone I found hidden in the lining of Mark's jacket, the jacket he was wearing during the accident. The police gave it to me with his belongings, and they never found it because it was sewn into a secret pocket. Another click. The text messages appeared, large enough for everyone to read. Mark, I'm doing it. Light crash on Highway 17. Enough to get admitted, but not enough to actually hurt me badly. Airbags will protect me. Meet me at Mercy General. This is it, babe. After today, we're free. Jay, I love you. Be careful. See you soon. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Stop this! Mark lunged for the laptop controlling the projector, but Dennis stepped out from the AV booth, blocking him. These messages were sent 5 minutes before the crash, I continued. Mark deliberately drove his car into a barrier to fake a medical emergency. The coma was real. That was an unfortunate complication. But the moment he woke up, he enacted his plan. The amnesia was fake. I clicked again. More messages appeared. The ones planning the scheme, discussing how to avoid the prenup, how to manipulate me. Robert Thorne stood up, his face red with fury. Mark, what the hell is this? Dad, I can explain. Then explain, his father roared. Click. The next image was the signed confession from 3 nights ago. This is a statement Mark signed 4 days ago, admitting to everything, admitting the accident was staged, admitting the amnesia was fake. Admitting he did it to avoid divorce proceedings that would have required him to split assets. Dr. Chen stepped forward from the crowd. Mrs. Thorne, are you saying that Mark deliberately deceived me and my medical team? Yes, Dr. Chen. He deceived everyone. He faked his symptoms. He studied the condition well enough to pass your tests. And he used your diagnosis to commit insurance fraud. $127,000 in fraudulent claims. The doctor's face darkened. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth, and the insurance company is already investigating. In fact, I looked toward the door, where 2 people in suits had just entered. I believe those are the investigators now. Mark saw them, and his knees buckled. Jessica tried to run, but someone blocked her path. One of the investigators approached the stage. Mark Thorne, we're with Meridian Insurance Fraud Investigation Unit. We'd like to ask you some questions. I have a lawyer. That's your right. But we have a warrant for your financial records, phone records, and medical files. And we have a signed confession. The investigator looked at me. Mrs. Thorne provided us with substantial evidence of fraud. You're looking at felony charges. The room was in chaos now. People were talking over each other, some defending Mark, others condemning him. Jessica was crying, mascara running down her face. Robert Thorne pushed through the crowd and grabbed Mark by the arm. I don't even know you, my own son, and I don't know you. Dad, please. You used your mother's tears for this. You let everyone feel sorry for you. You committed fraud. His voice broke. And that trust fund I set up for you, the one you were so desperate to protect, you just lost it. I'm cutting you off. Effective immediately. You can't. Watch me. My lawyers will be in touch. He turned to me. Mrs. Thorne, I apologize. On behalf of my family, I am so deeply sorry for what my son has put you through. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Mark turned to me, desperation in his eyes. Lena, please, we had a deal. You said if I confessed, I said if you took responsibility, I'd tell your father you were making it right, but you didn't take responsibility. You were going to stand up here and lie to all these people. You were going to accept their sympathy and their praise for surviving something you manufactured. I looked at Jessica. Both of you were. Jessica lunged at me. But security, real security, not just the party kind, intercepted her. You bitch! You planned this. You set us up. No, I said calmly. You set yourselves up. I just made sure everyone got to see it. The investigators were reading Mark his rights now. Jessica was being detained for questioning. The party guests were filing out, some shocked, some scandalized, all of them with a new story to tell. I handed the microphone back to the event coordinator and walked off the stage. Ruth met me at the exit. That was excessive? I was going to say perfectly executed. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. I could hear sirens approaching. Real police this time, not just insurance investigators. Claire ran up and hugged me. Oh my God, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Is it wrong that I feel good about it? Are you kidding? After what they did to you? You should feel good. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Chen. I wanted you to know that I'll be providing a full statement to the insurance company and the medical board. What Mark did doesn't just constitute fraud, it undermines the integrity of medical diagnosis and treatment. Thank you for bringing this to light. Another text, this one from Mark's colleague, David. I always knew something was off. Thank you for having the courage to tell the truth. Mark doesn't deserve to keep his consulting firm, and I'm going to make sure our clients know what kind of man he really is. And another from Mark's mother. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I raised him better than this. You deserved better than this. The messages kept coming. Support, validation, apologies. Ruth's phone rang. She answered, listened, then smiled. That was the prosecutor's office. Given the public confession and the evidence, they're pursuing maximum charges: felony insurance fraud, filing false police reports, possibly reckless endangerment for deliberately causing a car accident on a public highway. How much time? 7 to 15 years if convicted on all counts. 7 to 15 years. The same amount of time we'd been together, dating and married, poetic, in a way. And Jessica? They're evaluating. She might face conspiracy charges, but it depends on what Mark says in interrogation. If he throws her under the bus to save himself. He will, I said with certainty. That's who he is. We stood there watching as police cars pulled up, as more investigators arrived, as the Meridian's beautiful party became a crime scene. So what now? Claire asked. What happens to you? I thought about it. Now I start over. For real this time. Not as Mark's wife. Not as a victim, just as me. With $800,000 in settlement money, once the divorce goes through, Ruth added, plus whatever damages you're awarded in the civil suit, you'll be fine, Lena. Better than fine. It's not about the money, I said. I know, but it helps. She was right, it did help. But what helped more was knowing that Mark was going to face real consequences, that Jessica wasn't going to walk away smiling. That everyone who'd felt sorry for him, who'd celebrated his recovery, now knew the truth. That I'd won, not just in court, not just financially, but completely. 3 months later, I stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window in my new apartment, watching the city wake up. The sun was rising over the skyline, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. It was the first sunrise I'd watched in months where I didn't feel that crushing weight on my chest. The apartment was small, but mine. Truly mine. 1 bedroom, exposed brick, hardwood floors. I'd furnished it simply, no memories attached to any of it. Everything was new. Everything was a choice I'd made for myself. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I'd set it up months ago to track Mark's case. Local businessman sentenced to 12 years for insurance fraud scheme. I opened the article, scanning the details I already knew by heart. Mark had been convicted on all counts: insurance fraud, filing false police reports, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The judge had shown no mercy, calling his actions a calculated betrayal of trust on multiple levels: betrayal of his wife, his doctors, the insurance system, and the public. Jessica had taken a plea deal: 5 years probation, $50,000 in fines, and a permanent record. She'd testified against Mark in exchange for reduced charges, admitting to her role in planning the scheme. Mark's lawyer had tried to paint her as the mastermind, but the burner phone messages proved they were equal partners. The insurance company had recovered their $127,000 and sued Mark for an additional $500,000 in punitive damages. His consulting business had collapsed within weeks of the scandal. His clients fled. His reputation was destroyed. Robert Thorne had made good on his promise. The trust fund was permanently revoked. Mark would leave prison with nothing: no money, no family support, no career. Exactly what he'd tried to leave me with. The divorce had been finalized 6 weeks after his conviction. I received a settlement of $1.2 million, more than Ruth had initially projected, thanks to additional damages for emotional distress and fraud. But the money wasn't what made me feel whole again. What made me feel whole was the email I'd received yesterday. It was from Dr. Chen. Dear Mrs. Thorne, I wanted to inform you that your case has been used as a training example in our hospital's Ethics and Diagnostic Integrity program. Because of your courage in coming forward, we've implemented new protocols for verifying self-reported symptoms in traumatic brain injury cases. You may have prevented future fraud and protected other potential victims. Thank you for your strength. Courage. Strength. A year ago, I would have laughed at those words. I was just the devoted wife, the woman who believed everything she was told, the fool who'd been played. But I'd learned something in those dark months. Trusting people doesn't make you weak. Loving people doesn't make you a fool. What makes you strong is what you do when that trust is broken. I'd chosen to fight. I'd chosen to expose the truth. I'd chosen to believe that I deserved better. And I'd been right. My phone rang. Claire. You up? I'm up. Did you see the news? I saw it. 12 years? 12 years, Lena? I hope it was worth it for him. I smiled. It wasn't, but it was worth it for me. Brunch later? I want to hear about your interview. Right. The interview. I'd been offered a position at a nonprofit that helped victims of financial fraud navigate the legal system. My experience, both the betrayal and the victory, had made me uniquely qualified. Brunch sounds perfect. After we hung up, I poured coffee and sat on my tiny balcony. The city hummed below me, full of people starting their days, living their lives, facing their own battles. I thought about Mark, probably waking up in a prison cell right now. Was he thinking about me? Was he regretting his choices? Or was he still convinced he was the victim, that I was the villain who'd ruined his life? I'd never know. And I'd realized, finally, that I didn't need to know. His thoughts, his regrets, his redemption or lack thereof, none of it belonged to me anymore. What belonged to me was my future. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Jessica. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I needed to say I'm sorry. What we did was unforgivable. I hope you can find peace. I stared at the message for a long moment. A year ago, I would have responded. I would have said something gracious, something that showed I was the bigger person. But I'd learned something else over these months. I didn't owe my forgiveness to anyone, not to Mark, not to Jessica, not to anyone who'd hurt me. Forgiveness was mine to give or withhold, and I wasn't ready to give it. Maybe I never would be. And that was okay. I deleted the message without responding and blocked the number. That afternoon, after brunch with Claire, I visited my mother's grave for the first time since before Mark's accident. I'd been avoiding it, unable to face the guilt of having sold her jewelry to pay for a fraud. But the guilt felt lighter now. I placed fresh flowers on the headstone. Sunflowers, her favorite. "Hi, Mom," I said quietly. "I'm sorry it took so long to visit. Things got complicated." The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. A light breeze rustled the trees. "I sold your jewelry, the pieces Dad gave you, the ones you wanted me to have. I needed money for Mark's hospital bills. And I thought..." I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. I thought I was doing the right thing, saving my marriage, being a good wife. A bird sang somewhere nearby. But you know what? I bought them back. Last week. The settlement money, I used part of it to track down every piece and buy them back. They're mine again. Safe. I smiled through tears. And I think you'd be proud of me. Not for the revenge, maybe. You always taught me to be kind. But for standing up for myself, for refusing to be a victim, for fighting back. The wind picked up, warm despite the autumn chill. "I'm going to be okay, Mom. Better than okay. I'm going to help other people who've been hurt like I was. I'm going to use what happened to me to make something good." I stayed for a while longer, just sitting with her memory, feeling the weight of the past year finally starting to lift. That evening, I attended a support group for fraud victims. It was my third meeting, and I was starting to recognize faces, starting to feel like I belonged. A woman named Patricia was sharing her story. Her husband had emptied their retirement accounts and fled the country. She was 62, starting over with nothing. "But you know what the worst part is," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "I still love him. After everything, some part of me still loves the man I thought he was. How pathetic is that?" "It's not pathetic," I said, speaking up for the first time in any meeting. "It's human. You didn't fall in love with the man who stole from you. You fell in love with the man he pretended to be. That person was real to you. Your love was real. His betrayal doesn't make your love stupid or wrong." Patricia looked at me with tears in her eyes. "How do you get past it?" "You don't get past it," I said honestly. "You get through it, day by day. You grieve for the person you thought you knew. You grieve for the future you thought you'd have. And then slowly, you start building a new future, one that belongs only to you." After the meeting, several people came up to thank me for sharing. To tell me their stories, to ask how I'd found the strength to fight back. And I realized something. Mark had tried to take everything from me. My money, my home, my dignity, my future. But he'd failed. Because the one thing he couldn't take, the one thing he could never touch, was my choice of who I wanted to become after he'd broken me. And I'd chosen strength. I'd chosen truth. I'd chosen myself. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter forwarded through Ruth's office. Prison mail. From Mark. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. "Dear Lena, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably hate me. I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to understand something. I never meant for it to go this far. The accident was supposed to be minor. The coma was never part of the plan. And when I woke up and saw you there, saw what you'd sacrificed for me, I almost told you the truth right then. But Jessica was there, and my pride was there, and I couldn't admit what I'd done. So I kept lying, and the lie got bigger and bigger until I couldn't stop it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I did love you. Once. Before I let greed and cowardice turn me into someone I don't recognize. You deserved better than me. You deserved better than what I did to you. I hope you found happiness. I hope you found someone who sees your worth. Because you are worth so much more than I ever gave you credit for. I'm sorry. For everything. Mark, I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully, put it in an envelope, and wrote across the front. Return to sender. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his regret. I didn't need his admission that I deserved better. I already knew I deserved better, and I was building it piece by piece, day by day. 1 year to the day after Mark's sentencing, I was promoted at the nonprofit. I was now heading the legal advocacy division, helping fraud victims navigate the system that had once seemed so overwhelming to me. That evening, Ruth took me out to celebrate. To Lena, she said, raising her glass, who turned the worst betrayal of her life into a career helping others. To Lena, Claire echoed, the strongest person I know. I clinked glasses with them, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not just happiness, not just satisfaction, but genuine peace. You know what the strangest part is? I said. I'm grateful. Grateful? Claire nearly choked on her wine. For what Mark did? Not for what he did. But for what I discovered I was capable of because of it. A year and a half ago, I was someone who let herself be walked on, who accepted whatever she was given, who was afraid to make waves. And now? Ruth asked. Now I'm someone who fights, someone who doesn't accept less than she deserves, someone who knows her own worth. I smiled. Mark tried to destroy me. Instead, he freed me. He freed me from a marriage that was a lie, from a version of myself that was too small, from a life that wasn't really mine. That's a very zen way of looking at it, Claire said. Maybe, or maybe it's just the truth. He's in prison. His reputation is destroyed. His money is gone. His father won't speak to him. And me. I looked around the restaurant, at my successful career, at my true friends, at the life I'd built from nothing. I'm free. I'm happy. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So what's next? Ruth asked. What's the next chapter for Lena Thorne? I thought about it. I'm thinking of writing a book. About my experience. About how to recognize financial abuse. About how to fight back. About how to rebuild. You should, Claire said. Your story could help thousands of people. That's the goal. Turn my pain into something useful. Make sure what happened to me happens to fewer people in the future. We stayed until the restaurant closed, laughing and talking and planning my future. And when I finally went home to my small, perfect apartment, I stood at that window again, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Mark was in a cell, counting down 12 years. Somewhere out there, Jessica was trying to rebuild a reputation that would never fully recover. And here I was, standing in my own space, living my own life, free from both of them. He'd tried to make me forget. He'd tried to make me disappear. Instead, he'd made me unforgettable, and he'd made me stronger than I ever thought possible. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. Started typing. Chapter 1. The day he woke up. For 93 days, I sat by his bedside. For 93 days, I prayed for him to open his eyes. For 93 days, I believed in us. And then he woke up, and my real nightmare began. But this isn't a story about a nightmare. This is a story about waking up from one. This is a story about a woman who thought she'd lost everything and discovered she'd actually lost nothing that mattered. This is a story about revenge, yes. But more than that, it's a story about reclamation, about taking back what was stolen, not just money or property, but dignity. Self-worth, future. This is my story, and it ends not with his downfall, but with my rise. I smiled as I typed the last line, watching the cursor blink on the screen. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Inside, I felt lighter than air. Mark had tried to erase me from his story. Instead, I'd made him a footnote in mine, and I was just getting started. 2 years later. The book launch was packed, standing room only. "Ladies and gentlemen," the bookstore owner announced, "please welcome Lena Thorne, author of Forgotten But Not Gone, How I Survived Marriage Fraud and Found Myself." Applause erupted as I took the stage. I looked out at the crowd, survivors, advocates, therapists, lawyers, and people who just wanted to hear a story of triumph. "Thank you all for being here," I began. 2 years ago, I was broke, betrayed, and broken. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. I paused, letting the silence settle. I was wrong. What I'd actually lost was a life built on lies, a marriage that was a performance, a version of myself that was too afraid to demand better. More applause. My ex-husband wanted me to disappear. He wanted me to sign away my rights, take a pittance, and fade into the background of his new life. He wanted me forgotten. I smiled. But here's what he didn't understand. You can't forget someone who refuses to be forgotten. You can't erase someone who stands up and says, "No, not today, not ever." The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. So to anyone out there who's been betrayed, who's been lied to, who's been made to feel small, I want you to know something. Your betrayer tried to write your ending. They tried to make you the victim in their story. I held up my book. But you get to write your own story. You get to decide how it ends. And I promise you, if you choose to fight, if you choose to reclaim your life, if you choose yourself, your ending will be so much better than anything they could have written for you. Standing ovation. After the reading, I signed books for 2 hours. Each person had a story. Each person was fighting their own battle. And each person left with hope. As I packed up to leave, my phone buzzed. An email from my lawyer. "Mark Thorne has filed for early parole. Hearing scheduled for next month. Thought you should know." I stared at the email for a moment. Then I typed back, "Thank you for letting me know. I won't be attending the hearing. His future is his problem, not mine." And I meant it. Because the beautiful thing about winning isn't just defeating your enemy. It's reaching a place where they're no longer your enemy. They're just someone you used to know. Someone who taught you exactly who you never want to be. And someone you're grateful to have left behind. I walked out of that bookstore into the cool night air, my book in hand, my future ahead of me. Mark had tried to make me forget our past. Instead, I'd made sure the world would never forget what he'd done, and more importantly, I'd made sure I'd never forget what I was capable of. He'd underestimated me once. No one would ever make that mistake again,